fitness and genuine parts.
It's a quest requiring skill, strength, and courage. The 1997 Panasonic Dusi, brought to you by Panasonic Fax Machines. The quest for zero defect, only on Supersport.
Hello and welcome to the 1997 Dusi Canoe Marathon, the 46th edition of this classic old race. Everyone has billed this as a two-horse race, and today, the first day, will certainly tell, because the finish is another 40 kilometers down the road here on the Dusi River. At the start, however, at Kampsdrift, all talk centers on the two-horse race. Mark Perro from Gauteng, who's never won a singles title, and then the local man, KwaZulu-Natalian Kevin White.
Well, I think I'm going to hold back a little bit at the start for the first half an hour or so, just trying to keep in touch with the leaders as long as I can see them in the distance. And then at about halfway, I hope to be feeling strong and really finish strongly today.
We also asked Mark Perro how he felt about day one ahead.
Today's not my day. Today is a survival day for me.
So you're going to hang him?
Yeah, I think Wayne Bollock will go at the start. I'll just go with him. And then hopefully we'll have a small gap on Kevin. And then we'll wait for him to come, because he's going to come. And when he comes, hopefully we can just lock in behind him.
Everyone has billed it as a two-horse race, Perro against White. Is that how you see it as well, or are there other paddlers who can sneak this?
Well, whoever wants to win this race is going to have to beat Kevin. But there are a lot of guys out there. John Edmonds is firing at the moment. He's had no pressure on him. I expect him to go very, very well, especially today. Kelby Murray's going to go well today. And Wayne Bollock will go well day 2, day 3.
The other favourite, and a late one at that, was three-time singles winner John Edmonds, warming up just before the start, early morning. Well, then it was the start, and joining us for commentary here on Supersport for this inaugural Dusi broadcast, Ali Maynard, a veteran of 14 Dusi canoe marathons. Commercial Road Weir, the first one just down the road from the start. Ali, a difficult one.
Yes, a difficult one, and Ant Ryan, surprisingly in the lead there, went over first, a Springbok sprint paddler, not well experienced in the Dusi, followed by Kevin White, and other paddlers coming through at this point in time, taking it very conservatively and safely.
Indeed, one of those where you have to decide, do we shoot it or do we portage around the back? And you see paddlers way back there in the background. They're the ones who decided to portage. On to Mussensweer, and a very important part of day one.
Mussensweer, yes, interesting. Kevin White took a different line down here. The correct line is the paddler on the left of your screen there, and Kevin's taken the line coming down the middle. Nothing wrong with that. Maybe he was blocked and had to take a different option. And you can see Mark Perro, right, there's Kevin coming down that line in the middle. Mark Perro just on Ant Ryan's slip at that stage, and Kevin White just taking it easy.
Back just after the start, and this is the so-called fish and chips, but there's no such thing as fish and chips in the Dusi. It's all hard work. Some of the K2 canoes working extremely hard, and they could have done with an oxygen lung or two. And there's an early swimmer, as the paddlers call him. Lots and lots of water in the river this year, and quite clearly that's the way the paddlers like it.
Yes, 15 cubics flowing out of Henley Dam, a nice controlled river, medium, not high, as the top paddlers would have wanted it.
Some of the early swimmers having to get out of the boat, get the cover off, that splash cover, and back out. Now we're up to Bishopstowe Hill, and one of the first big portages, and the favourite, Kevin White, just running in second spot.
Yes, that was Gavin Tarr in the lead there. Gavin ran very, very hard on that portage, and I think in retrospect Gavin might feel that he went a bit too hard there. Kevin White was starting to move on him and passed him shortly after that.
A good 14, 15, even 16 kilometers worth of portaging on day one, an extremely taxing and physical day.
Yes, very much so. Here we're looking at Kevin again. They're on their way to Campbell's Farm now. They're on the path, and this is where Kevin really started to move. And as I said, past Gavin Tarr and started to really take a commanding lead, but a taxing part of the course, yes.
Kevin White, the defending singles champion. But just look at the vegetation. That's another factor that made it an extremely difficult day one. Very dense, very overgrown, and guys can get themselves snagged. Trouble, however, just a bit further back down the road, because one of the other favorites of the day, Mark Perro, the 1992 Barcelona Olympian, was running himself into trouble. The seconds were out in full force. That, in fact, is his Raid Gouloir teammates who will be competing with him in an international endurance event in just a few weeks' time right here in Southern Africa. They were talking to him, screaming at him, trying to get him right because he really battled in the first half.
Yes, the course was starting to get hot now, and Mark was taking strain here. This is him going into a hole in the wall, and at this moment he's off the pace by about 2 minutes.
Indeed, taking extreme strain, and why, you may ask? Well, 36 degrees in the valley, a really, really tough day. The man who came storming through, John Edmonds, 3-time singles winner.
John Edmonds, a very, very good runner. He's been on this course before, and this is where John started to move, and I think he paced himself absolutely perfectly, planned, and then started to move on the hole-in-the-wall portage, knowing that Guinea fowl was coming up.
And in that top 10, Hillebrand, Edmonds, Stott, Goddard, Wilson, Leslie, Rowan, Perro, and Edmonds chasing extremely hard. But Kevin White setting the pace right at the front there. And later in the day, that would cost him dearly because perhaps today was not the day to push it early on.
Yes, Kevin is an experienced person, and I think what he had to do there was go out on the portages and try and build up a bit of a cushion, knowing that Mark Perro, with his paddling abilities in the background. Here is Kevin coming down now at the end of the hole-in-the-wall portage to put in. And he will now paddle down to the Guinea fowl portage, and he has a commanding lead at this stage.
Well, the hole in the wall meant almost a hole in Kevin White because his trouble was ahead of him at this point. He was going strong, but perhaps that start just a little too quick today in retrospect, but still looking very, very good here. Dense and overgrown in the valleys of KwaZulu-Natal, and that makes it very, very difficult indeed. We were able to catch up and just see how big the gap was right there at the top of one of the portages. Quite clearly very thirsty work for the early leader. Looking at race time, it's 1 hour 37 minutes and almost 50 seconds now, and in the front and enjoying a big cushion at this stage, it's defending singles champion Kevin White. Nice going, Kevin. Indeed, nice going, but this is where he started playing. And of course, Guinea fowl, this portage that we're watching here, is a very important one because they drop down into the Devil's Cauldron where it's incredibly hot.
Yes, very, very hot down there, and we know now that this is where Kevin actually started to experience problems because he ran out of fluid. He told us at the overnight stop, and he started to battle here. John Edmonds coming up here. As we said, John Edmonds started his push at hole in the wall, and I think he had raced conservatively up to this point and started to push through. Planned, calculated, very, very good tactician, has won the singles event 3 times before, knows what to do.
And him being 36 years old with all that experience also made a very big difference. A huge portage and extremely difficult now. At this point, it must have been way up in 37, 38 degree territory. It was incredibly hot.
Right, and then this is Kevin White coming up to Mission Rapid. He's come down now, Guinea fowl put in, and he will come down and take it. He came down on the left-hand bank, which is the traditional one, and at this stage he was going well and had established a fairly good lead. But what is interesting, John Edmonds had come into second place.
John Edmonds up then in second place and chasing White very hard, and the other favourite, well, Mark Perro, there is Edmonds screaming around the corner. He's got his prey in sight and working very hard. Perro, at that point, at the top of that last portage, he was 2 minutes and 50 seconds down, but White starting to feel the effects of his start, and this man was putting on all the pressure on day one.
Psychologically, I think very important, Arnie, because he actually could see Kevin White in front of him, so he could keep him in his sights on the paddle down to finger neck. And this is Kelby Murray, who was paddling very well and holding 3rd position, and Mark Perro was shortly behind him there.
Well, the interesting thing about Edmonds is 36 years old with all that experience, as well as the course record for the Dusi in the singles from 1991, an 8 hour 17-minute effort.
Kelby Murray had come through particularly well, but unfortunately he paid the price for a very good early start later on in the race.
Here's Perro, 31. He lives in the Parkview area in Johannesburg, and he's won titles in his canoe virtually right around the world. Also 2 doubles titles with Neil Evans, but the one burning ambition in this man's mind is to clinch a Panasonic Dusi singles title.
From this point on, Mark started to look very good and started to make his move.
A little bit further back down the road, some seconds really had to push, shove, pull and cajole their charges up the hills and down the dales, because the temperature in KwaZulu-Natal this morning was scary. That's Kevin White taking strain a little bit further back. emphasis on the finger neck portage and very hard work. Back at the finish of day one, it turned out to be an incredibly interesting day, because after all that hard work, the man to come through to take line honours on day one, three-time singles winner John Edmonds.
Yes, a very, very good paddle. As we said, calculated, he made his move at the right time. He's been here before, and a very, very good day for John Edmonds.
Pero coming through to take second place in just a tad over 45 seconds behind. Let's hear what Edmonds had to say after a hard day on the water.
Oh no, I'm getting a bit old, so I used to, in the old days, I used to take off like a thunderbolt at the start and have a lead, try and get a lead at a low-level bridge, and then just hang on to it. And now I can't stay with the guys at the start, so I let them go and hope that they'd come back, with the heat. And that's what happened. I didn't actually change my pace at all. Other guys just started coming back.
That was due to the heat to a great degree, would you say, as well?
Yeah, the heat and just consistency. The guys all get, there's a lot of build-up before the race, and a lot of guys, there were about 12 guys looking at third position. It was a two-horse race between Mark and Kevin before the race. And then there were a whole heap of us looking for the third. So I think a lot of guys were racing against each other. And I think they got too caught up into it, at the start.
Has Kevin, for a start, blown it to win the 97 race?
Kevin is a superb athlete, but it's going to be a huge ask. Not against me so much, against Mark Pero. Mark Pero is in frightening form. He's really, really, really going well.
Well, that would be what one would want to see in the morning. And then it was time to go further back. And we also have to tell you that Wendy White was the lady who came through to take the place. And Kevin White in lots of trouble. This was his interview with us today.
Good, even though I was in the lead. I was really battling from the word goes. I was actually surprised that I made a bit of a gap because I was going so slowly. And then I think I underestimated the heat and I ran out of juice on guinea fowl. And it's from guinea fowl to the next juice point is about an hour. And I just couldn't keep my footing. I just kept falling over in the Devil's Cauldron. And on finger neck, I missed the path down to the river. I was really battling to stay in my boat. And I just didn't drink enough juice.
Is that due to the heat out there today, you think?
I think so. I just underestimated. I should have taken a tripper drinking system or something to have, carried more juice on me. I just totally underestimated the heat, yeah.
Well, his wife, Wendy, had a much better day, and she won in 82nd place overall, the women's section on day one in 3 hours, 49 minutes and 11 seconds. But further back on the Dusi, well, lots and lots of things happen. There are 1,300 paddlers. Here's one of the development paddlers taking an early swim, but he got back in and finished very comfortably back at the overnight point. The end then of day one in the 1997 Panasonic Dusi Canoe Marathon, and certainly an interesting one it was, a very hot one too. But looking at the weather conditions at the end of day one, day two may not be quite that hot. In fact, it may be exactly the opposite. Time will tell. Time will also tell what the race will bring on day two, because Mark Pero has his work cut out, with one of the other favourites, John Edmonds, really making his presence felt on day one. We'll bring you all the highlights from day two from the Panasonic Dusi Canoe Marathon tomorrow night at 7:15. Trust you can join us. From us at the Dusi, back to the studio.
Well, Well, exciting stuff there at the end of day one of the Dusi, as Arnold's just said. Join us tomorrow evening at around about the same time for day two's highlights. In case you were wondering what had happened to Bruce Fordyce and Naas Botha, who of course made their paddling debut today, Bruce Fordyce and his partner Neil Evans finished 5th in the K2s, and Naas Botha and Arthur Chalipsky finished in 4 hours and 15 minutes, which puts them in the top 10 to 15% of the competitors. More about that tomorrow evening at the same time. We're going to be staying